This is an old spiritualist poem, but quite different from the tame Tolls type spiritualist poetry that we read at the beginning of the tour. On this side here. And then Maddie, where are you? Okay, do you want to do the Lavinia one next? Okay.
What I do not believe. I do not believe in a personal God, as taught by the Church in these latter days, who sits in a throne in a far-off heaven, demanding of men adoration and praise. I do not believe that the worlds were all made in 6 literal days, as in Genesis taught. The suns and the orbs that round them revolve could never have rushed into being from naught. I do not believe that the time ever was when matter was not, and God reigned supernal. For what we call God, of matter's the life, and matter and life are alike eternal. I do not believe that man was ever made by God as mechanic out of red earth, but, like to the fishes, the birds, and the beasts, 'twas nature conceived and gave him his birth. I do not believe the often told tale of the serpent that tempted old Mother Eve. It smacks of the myth a little too strong for any but orthodox brains to believe. I do not believe in an orthodox hell, all ablaze with an unquenchable fire, nor yet in a devil whose business it is to stir up in men unhallowed desire. I do not believe in miracles wrought by any suspension of natural laws, for every effect, no matter how strange, is ever the child of a natural cause. I do not believe an atonement was made by shedding of blood on Calvary's hill, but believe for each man to reap what he sows, the only true measure of justice can fill. Now what must I do if I cannot believe these cardinal points I am solemnly told? No amount of good works can ever avail to give me a place in the heavenly fold.
From that book.
This is an excerpt from a poem called A Woman's Right to Propose by Lavinia Waterhouse. I know a woman in Sacramento City, and the just and the good will say it's a pity that she should pay taxes for 20 years and no one cared for her sorrows and tears. The money must go for county and state, and she must succumb to the dictates of fate. She is taxed for her house, also for her land, and then for her watch, which she can hardly stand. She is taxed for her chairs and carpets too, for all things that are old as well as new. The tax for the city she surely must pay, for grading the streets and the sidewalks to lay. And then she is taxed every month for water, which some only pay for by the quarter. And then she must pay for sprinkling the street. And it is very hard all these taxes to meet. These man-made laws she must ever obey, as in the past ever so today. Then he is the master and she is the slave. She from those laws there is nothing can save. These laws so oppressive on women do prey, but with patience they wait for a better day. For there is cause for contention and strife ever between the husband and loving wife. For they should be equal in labor and care, and in life's burdens take equal share. But contention and strife from this very cause will continue until they change the laws. If woman pays taxes to support the state, then let her help the laws to make. And whatever she does, and wherever she goes, may she know she has the right to propose.
The survivors of the Donner Party. Well, am I wrong? Philippine, that's right. Philippine Caseberg, sorry. She was the wife of Louis Caseberg, who was famous as, Donner Party cannibal. He admitted eating the sweetmeats, the organs. They had the nutrition. And I played him one year in a lantern tour. Did a lot of research on him, and basically he said, "Don't judge me. Don't, unless you were up there on the point of starving to death and had to choose between letting yourself starve to death and your wife and young child perhaps be on their own in this harsh, cruel world in the middle of nowhere, or you could eat that heart and maybe hang around a little bit more. George Keithley wrote a poem called The Donner Party in the 1980s, I believe. That is specific. It's a long poem about the Donner Party, and we don't want to read the whole thing, but I'll read a little excerpt here. Every day after dawn, the gray coyotes crawl on their bellies underneath the bushes and walk out and squat 100 feet from our hut, ears in the air and their eyes down as they sniff at the patches of hair, rolling the pine cones with their paws while they browse beneath the trees and trickle urine on the blonde bones. With a full beard flowing over the snowy breast of his silk shirt, a man looking more like a ghost goes by us, on his way to see the dead carcasses, which he collects in the shelter of the low shrubs. Caseberg hobbles past the huts. As he reaches the mound and crouches over the corpses, turning them this way and that, with one end of his staff, a walking stick cut like a crutch, a long piece of pine which he can cramp under his arm, he plants it in the moist mulch to one side when he bends over the bodies and deliberately extends his stiff leg inches off the ground. He puts his water bucket nearby. He picks a skull from the pile beneath his knee and plucks the brains and tucks them carefully in his lap while he breaks a breast apart and hunts with one hand for the heart. He carries up his stick when he wishes to go. He carries the meat in the crook of his sleeve, and we watch him retreat toward the trees that protected my brother's place, walking with a halting hitch in his hip, lifting his large leg like a dead weight, which he has to drag with him wherever he went. And basically, Louis Caseberg did drag. The Donner Party followed him for the rest of his life, so that's an apt metaphor. All right, I promise the next one will be cheerier. Talk about is James W. Coffroth. He is buried 1, 2, 3 back here. You don't have to come off the show you. This is where he's buried, and this is James Coffroth. And this is from a book about him. James Coffroth was a famous lawyer in early Sacramento, or early California, mostly known as a criminal defense attorney. He also crossed the aisle. He basically would defend or prosecute anybody as long as they were paying him. He had a reputation of getting anybody out of jail, and also as a brawler, and being shamelessly sentimental, especially when it came to the female sex. He had edited newspapers in the East, so when he came to California in 1851, he started writing for the Sonora Herald and later for the Columbia Gazette, and he was known as a great orator. Of course, he's a lawyer, so he liked to talk, hear himself talk. And a politician, even worse, liked to hear himself talk more. So 4th of July orations, he could go on for an hour or two. The crowd gave him the moniker he would take to the grave, Tuolumne's favorite son. And he was an assemblyman, I think, or a state senator from Tuolumne in 1853, 4, 6, and 7. There's a story about him defending a client up in the mountain country of highway robbery. He had succeeded in getting his client cleared of the charges, and he was riding home on his horse through the mountain pass when he was pulled over by a highwayman and said, "Give me all your money." And it was dark and foggy, and the guy said, "Jim, is that you?" "Yeah." "Oh, I don't want your money. Get out of here." It was a guy he had just gotten off. So, but there is a stage through here in a few minutes, so if you wouldn't mind, get out of here. So he let the guy get back to work and left. In 1856, he was smit with the charms of Isabel Cook, who was described as a famed belle, one of the most beautiful of women, of elastic step and queenly carriage. She had many admirers. One who displayed a little too much attention was a state senator who Coffroth found in the street and whipped him with his cane. At least he didn't do it on the floor of the Senate like some other people. And his son, Jim Coffroth Jr., became a racehorse promoter and boxing promoter. Had something to do with the Santa Anita racetrack being built. Anyway, he loved sentimental poetry, the sappier the better. Loved poetry especially, and we'll read one of his crimes here, called Idle Thoughts. The dream is over, past, oh past recalling. And this is 1850s or 60s, I don't have it on here. The dream is over, past, oh past recalling, are the mad hopes that heavened 1 hour with bliss, hopes like the dew that on the flowerets falling presses their pale lips with a delicate kiss. Then why, my soul, oh why this fond returning, like escaped songbird from its wildwood nest? Oh why this sweet but melancholy yearning, o'er scenes all anguish now, though once so blessed? From out the blue sky of its sunlit dwelling a blushing star still sadly gazed on me. 'Twas thine, I knew it, for my heart was swelling at the too faithful image love of thee. Ah, how I watched its tremulous emotion, jealously hoarding up its spirit light with all a miser's passionate devotion, until I seemed to live but in its sight. Whoa, sneakeroonie. It was our token star of faith, and feeling that thou couldst worship it, my heart had made of its glad smile an altar shrine, and stealing far from the cold world's noonday dull parade, I loved to commune with its brightness only, to idolize its beauty and confess, thou couldst not leave me thus unloved and lonely, ere I should perish with forgetfulness. Thy mystic presence was an earthly heaven, the incarnation of each joyful thought. To thee, my life, my soul, my all were given, and every pulse with thee was ever fraught. As free the gifts, so free was their reception. By thee, thou mistress of my stricken heart. But love's constancy was still deception. I was too happy, yet we dwell apart. To my heart, how vain, how full of sadness to mingle thus amid the world alone. There is no smile to me like thine of gladness, no joy nor mirth, nor happier sounding tone. A lingering hope is still my heart caressing, that bygone hours may yet return once more. Oh, for one glance of love to me confessing, that we may meet us we have met before. Yeah, oh, it's hard, you think it's hard to hear, it's hard to read that. This is the main reason I did this tour, just so I could read this guy's bad. There's more that's worse. So, all right, we're almost done. We have about one more stop. We're going to go to the state plot for the end. So follow us down this paper show at the La Quinta Inn. Where is it?
Folsom Boulevard by Sunrise.
Folsom Boulevard by Sunrise. And paper show at Ephemera, Pacific Gold Rush. If you're into that, it's interesting stuff. Also, right here, the 13th of September is the Sacramento Antiquarian Book Fair. Lots of old books and paper, interesting stuff. Everything from envelopes, photos, stamps, articles. I mean, anything that could be cut out of a magazine or anything made out of paper, basically, right?
Yeah, rare books.
Rare books, a lot of interesting rare books. And this is free admission on this coupon. If anybody is interested in that, come and see me, and this will get you into it. There you go.
You're using your phone.
Oh, okay, yeah. Thank you very much. And this is the state plot here, owned by the state of California. Everybody that is buried in here was a public servant. There's a couple wives in here, but a lot of bachelors, mostly people that died didn't have a plot of their own, and they were beloved public servants, and most of them died in unfortunate circumstances. accidents. There's several suicides. John Bell on the corner was a congressman that got in a fight with another state senator at the Capitol, and they got in a knife fight. Well, he pulled the knife in a gunfight, so that was his mistake. It was didn't happen on the floor of the Capitol, though. They had the decorum to go off to the sergeant at arms rooms to do that. And there's a poem here called California Legislature. It's actually a song from that period.
Wow.
The honorable body is hard to be beat. Too lazy to work for the victuals they eat. They do us no good, but still they get pay for raising the devil $8 a day.
What?
They're all very nice while buying up votes. Shake hands with the miners and drink with the bloats. But meet them below and it's right the reverse. You're only a miner, poor miserable curse. We ought to feel proud of so wealthy a band of government robbers that got it so grand. They squander our money, good brandy adore. They empty the treasury, then ask for more. Go into the Capitol. There you will see on one side a fight, the other side a spree. For someone is hit with a cane o'er their head, another gets drunk, they put him in bed. His honor goes in for a share of the funds to buy ammunition and water lots guns. Both hands in the treasury trying to find a bit for an ante and $2 blind. Those paupers by no means are competent men. The average from Sydney is 1 out of 10. They'll get all they can out of old Uncle Sam. For honorable duty, they don't care a damn. They know it's a farce and a dreadful disgrace. They can't look an honest white man in the face. That's what it says here. And all feel shame to acknowledge the corn, but they can't get around it, as sure as you're born. And, let's see. Okay, here we go. Also here is Dr. John Morse, who is a physician who wrote one of, actually the first Diary of Sacramento. Interesting character, kind of hunky, good-looking guy. He wrote History of Sacramento, and it talked about before there were any services here, just people came, and there's from these sources, Sacramento became a perfect lazar house of disease, suffering, and death months before anything like an effective city government was organized. It must be recollected that in proportion as these scenes began to accumulate, talking about cholera and stuff, just in such a proportion did men seem to grow indifferent to the appeals of suffering and to the dictates of benevolence. The more urgent and importunate the cries and beseeching miseries of the sick and destitute, the more obdurate, despotic, and terrible became the reign of cupidity. Everything seemed vocal with the assurance that men came to California to make money, not to devote themselves to a useless waste of time in procuring bread and raiment for the dependent, in watching over and taking care of the sick, or in the burying of the dead. The common god, gold of that day, taught no such feminine virtues, and the king of the country, cupidity, declared it worse than idle in his subjects to pay attention to the ties of consanguinity, or stultify their minds with any considerations of affection or appreciation of human sympathies. Fathers paid little attention to sons, and sons abandoned families when they required a little troublesome care. Brothers were fraternally bound to each other as long as each was equally independent of all assistance. But when sickness assailed and men became dependent upon men, then it was that the channels of benevolence were found to be dry, and the very fountains of human sympathy sealed by the most impenetrable selfishness. That's the early days of Sacramento. Okay. One more. I have lots more. I could keep going forever, but we want to wrap this up. So I'll just read something that you can carry with you. It's called the Grumbler's Song. Let us murmur while we may. Life at best is but a day. Few the hopes and joys of man. Let us grumble while we can. Earth is but a vale of tears, full of sorrows, cares, and fears. Dark and stormy is the way. Let us grumble while we may. Life is but a mournful dream, ending in Lethean stream. Soon its fleeting joys are o'er. Let us grumble evermore. Let us grumble while we can at the mournful lot of man. Half the pleasure life can give is in grumbling while we live. All right. Thank you very much for coming, folks. Thank you. Oh, okay. Thank you. We'll take care of that. Yeah, we have an Iron Ranger up front. If you did want to make contributions, you can put that in the Iron Ranger. And we have another tour in 2 weeks, right? 3 weeks? 3 weeks. And it'll be a dozen more ways to die. Right. And thank you all for coming. If you have any questions, you can come up to me and ask me. And,
Real quick, Barnabas